Hello, I wanted to make a quick video. This is mainly for landlords who are worried about the coronavirus and tenants not paying their rent and possibly getting repossessed and stuff like that. And my general thoughts on it are, I think, if your tenant is self-isolating or is off work with coronavirus, I think your first step would be to say to them to use their deposit. Now, if a tenant's been in for 6 months or a year or 2 years, you've had no trouble. I think you sort of send them a letter and say, right, miss your month's payment, and then when you vacate the property, whenever it might be, I get your deposit back straight away. They could sign to say that, and they lose the deposit. But at least by doing that, they've not fallen behind by a month. You've not lost your money. I know you've got no deposit if there's damage or anything like that, but I think that could be a sort of good plan for sort of making sure the tenant doesn't get into debt. So that is what I'm going to do. So if a tenant can't pay, I'm going to say to them, right, first step, use their deposit. And then the next thing is, I think, tenants are sort of getting worried about not being able to pay, losing the jobs and things like that. But I mean, in the society that we're in, if you lose your job and you can't work, you're on housing benefit. So then the next thing I think is, if you go online and you look at the local housing authority housing allowance rates, they list the rates for your local area. I've had a look at this, and so a 2-bedroom property, the local council are willing to pay £509. Now I've got a 2-bed property that I rent at the minute, and I rent it for £575. So I would be willing to drop the rent to the £509, which I think is fair enough. I think somebody's unemployed, that they haven't got to put anything to it. Make it the same rent as the local housing authority rate. A 3-bedroom property, they're paying £579. And one of my 3-bed properties rents for £640. So you're not losing a great deal. I've got another 3-bed which rents for £675. So you'd lose about £100. But my view is that you're better off keeping the tenants in place, because I think if a property becomes vacant, you're going to have a lot of problems letting a property. I've talked to my local letting agent, and they're saying that viewings are well down, and I sort of worry now. I think to myself, if you've got a property that's empty, I reckon you're going to struggle to get a tenant in. You might not get a tenant for 6 months, and the main thing with that is that then you're paying the council tax, the utility bills. So that's what I'm trying to do. So I'm trying to keep the tenants in place, and I think if they can't pay, they're going to worry, aren't they? Thinking, I can't pay, I'm going to get into debt. But at the end of the day, if you're unemployed, you can claim housing benefit, and then that would cover the rent. There's no worries, is there? My next thought is I think you want a bit of a firefighting fund. I didn't have, I've been sort of buying. I recently bought another property. I had some shares which are sold prior to the corona outbreak, which I'm really happy about. And my cash in the bank was I was probably down to about £5,000. And I was sort of thinking, if you get to the point where you lose your job, you get a tenant that won't pay. You could soon burn. I could soon burn £1,000, £1,500 a month easy. So I think a good thing would be now, while you've got the chance, if there's any scope for further borrowing, I would take further borrowing. It's like your houses. If there's any chance of remortgaging one of your houses. I mean, you might have a house that's got quite a lot of equity. Probably not your own residence, but one of your buy-to-lets. I think if you can pull some cash out, and you've got a bit of a firefighting fund, and you think to yourself, well, you know, I've probably got enough cash for a year or a year and a half or 2 years. I think that's what you want, you know. And as well as that, if you borrowed more money, let's say if you could take 10 grand or 20 grand out, you know, as a bit of a firefighting fund out of one of your properties, at least then, you know, on the other side of this, and property prices drop, which I think they will, then there might be scope for another purchase. So you know, that's what I've done at the minute. I'm doing at the minute is I'm trying to borrow more money, so I've got a bit of a firefighting fund. So that's my short video. You know, really for tenants. I keep seeing stupid videos on YouTube. Like, oh, you know, what you need to do is more training, you know, oh, do more training, you know what I mean? Well, you don't need to do more training. You want to cut down your expenses as much as you can, look at your outgoings. If you can cancel things that you don't need, cancel them, and just sort of like figure out, and maybe, you know, people have said as well, if you can look at the references on your tenants and figure out what jobs they do, that might be handy as well. You know, I know like one of my tenants is a nurse, and you think, well, her job's safe as houses. One of them's a van driver, so you sort of think he's going to be busy, isn't he? You know, like they're saying that Amazon are flat out and supermarkets are flat out. So you know, I think that would give you a bit of peace of mind as well. Look at the applications, you know, when your tenants moved in, and look at the jobs, and then think, right, what's the chances of losing their job or being unemployed? But anyway, that is my short video, mainly for landlords. I hope that helps. Okay, cheers, bye.